The only way you can do it is have a safe list of websites. Then you put the software on top in case they've been compromised or other sort of things. But if you have a blacklist, that website's harmful, we'll now block it. Well, you've already had harm to that child.
Right.
And those bad websites are made every second, every minute. You can't keep up. There's no software that can be fast enough to the predators and harm that's on the internet.
I am so grateful to sit here with Elle Benson. She and I met in a women's entrepreneur group. She is well known in the nonprofit space as a speaker and a happiness researcher. Welcome, Elle.
This is so joyful to be here with you.
Yes. I would love first for you to tell me a little bit more about yourself so the audience can hear who you are. I would love to hear more about how you stumbled upon the love of happiness, which is so great.
Yeah.
You're a ball of joy. And then I think we will talk a little bit about the advocacy work that we've been doing together here locally in Nashville.
Yeah, because we have 100 things up in the air at once.
Right.
Yeah, we could talk about things all day.
Yeah.
I am from Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
I have 5 sisters, 2 brothers. Big family. Imagine like the Brady Bunch meets the Osbournes and all of those complexities in there. Never a dull moment, but that also meant that I needed to get out. Like wild chaos family. So I graduated high school in 3 years and said, how far away can I go? So I went 21 hours away to Tennessee because I knew there'd be no parental pop-ins, like random visits, space and distance in a 21-hour drive. And I love Tennessee. It was so different, culturally different growing up than in urban Denver. But it's something I think I needed, and I really needed to grow and become sort of an individual outside of the complexities of family. And I got a business degree at the University of Tennessee, but then did some internships where I figured out corporate's not for me. And I love internships for that because you can learn what not to do in your life.
It's true.
But I love the business philosophy, how businesses grow and scale, and what does that look like. I started volunteering a lot in college with doing fundraising events and putting on events and marketing and raising money. And one specifically was with the Children's Hospital. And I was like, oh, is there like a job doing this where I can like raise money for nonprofits and also use my business skills? Like, what does this look like? And so we'll pause on that for a minute. Then I did an internship at the Tennessee Theater, because now we're getting to the love story. And there was this guy who just kept stopping by my office, my desk at the little internship, and just had no ability to flirt whatsoever. I mean, his first line to me was, do you have AT&T phone service by chance? And I was like, oh, he's a nice guy. He's got no game. It was great. So anyway, he was 5 years older than me, and he asked me out to go to a bar. And I was like, my fake ID just got taken up, so I can't yet. But in a couple of weeks, I'll be 21.
Okay.
And he said, and I was getting close to graduating, and I was going to go to New York or Amsterdam or somewhere really big. I'm a big city girl at heart. And this cute boyfriend, who was older, but he was like, you're going to stay here at Knoxville. And I was like, oh, that's cute. I don't stay anywhere for a boy. Like, why would I do that? Like, this has been fun, but we're time limited. And he said, what would it take for you to stay here in Knoxville? And I said, pie in the sky. Like, let's manifest this. I said, I want to work for a social justice women's organization. I want to use my business and marketing skills, and I want to raise money, and this is where I went wrong. I said, I want to make $27,000 a year. I was like, why did I pick such a low number? And so what we did back in the day, we had these things called phone books. You remember those?
Yeah, I remember those.
And so we went to the nonprofits, and we looked at every single nonprofit in all of Knoxville, Tennessee. And I was like, nope. It needs to like sing to my heart. And we got to the YWCA, the last one in the phone book. Looked at their website. They have programmings for victims of domestic violence and senior programs and low-income mother support. And it resonated with me. And I said to him, I'll stay in here in Knoxville and continue to date you if I get this job at this nonprofit. So I manifested this job. I reached out to the new executive director and said, I'm going to be available soon. I'm graduating. Here's my skill set. Here's what I can do for you. And she said, let's talk. And I got an interview, and I got the job that didn't exist. And I got the offer letter. I should have asked the job salary, but since I manifested this, and it was $27,000 a year.
There you go.
Which was way too low. Why didn't I think higher? People listening, think higher. And that's how I got my start in nonprofit organizations. we grew and scaled that organization from a 1.5 to a $6 million organization. And we did that through intentional trainings and teams and culture and strategy and collaborations. And it was some of the most meaningful work I've ever done. And I loved it. I got burnt out though. I lived 2 blocks away from the shelter. I ran our facilities. I was there 7 days a week, 12-hour days. And now I look back and go, oh, that's what burnout was. And so I gave a 6-month notice to leave because I needed to, because they weren't going to run without me. And thought, what do I want to do now? I was like, oh, I really love this growing and scaling thing. So I went and worked for corporate, learning how small businesses grow and scale, learned so much, consumed so much information. Hated it because it's corporate and money doesn't motivate me. And so at this point in time, East Tennessee region was finally talking about having a capacity building center, a nonprofit that helps all the nonprofits with capacity building and scaling. And I was like, sign me up. So I was the first staff member and got to help build this nonprofit organization. And it was incredible. I mean, from rural communities to urban communities to how do we make community change? Well, as we're designing this nonprofit, I did my MBA in organizational change and leadership. And I had this phenomenal coach. He's the smartest person in the world. Chris Crouch out there. You were brilliant. He's a speed reader. And he'll tell you, read this book in page 32 in the 3rd paragraph. It's blown my mind. Barely read before falling asleep. And he said, you need to study positive psychology.
Okay.
And because I'm thinking like, okay, we want to build stronger communities. We know strong leaders do that. But like, okay, how? You just say, build strong leaders. And he said, you need to understand the science of happiness. And I didn't understand that until I started diving into the science of happiness. Martin Sigelman and Dr. Sonia Libranierski and the how of happiness changed my life. And it became like a passion. And it was like, how do I help women understand that I'll be happy when, and how does it curate? But that's when I started diving into happiness, when I was helping organizations grow and scale in East Tennessee.
So then when did you start speaking about this topic and the research that you've been doing here in Nashville? Like, talk to me about that.
So I've been a public speaker at the YWCA. My job was to raise money. So I would travel and speak about victims of domestic violence and the cause, and do some sort of advocacy, grassroots education, community building around the issue. And so had been a public speaker in that sense, speaking at fundraising events. Then at the Alliance for Better Nonprofits, I taught most of the classes, and we did conferences and such. So I would teach on nonprofit capacity building. I started teaching at the university nonprofit courses. And so within the happiness work, it was really segmented for a while. I took a stand-up comedy class to become a better speaker. And I loved it. But I showed up on Tuesday night. The University of Tennessee had these non-credit courses, and it was like their certificate program. And I was like, well, I want to be funnier. Doesn't everyone want to be funnier? And most people in the room had quit their day jobs for this. Whew, a little risky. I don't think any of them are real comedians at this point in time. But I learned through experimental learning. They would have these open mics for us and just set us up at different bars around town. And through that experience, I did my first TEDx. And my TEDx was the connection of how we look at humor and how we try new things. And my story of doing stand-up comedy relates to the science of well-being, and it really embodies reframing your brain. So throughout that entire segment when I was doing comedy, I stopped doing comedy when COVID hit and the bars shut down, but I would look at every little thing in my life and think, how can I laugh at this? How can I make this a joke? How can I reframe, and reframe not to laugh at, but to laugh with? How can I have a human connection with someone? Because we know we connect better with humans when we laugh together. It shortens the paths of connection.
So great.
And so it was really fun, doing comedy and reframing it for my TEDx. And that's, I think, when I sort of got more of a platform to be a public speaker. And so I published my first book for pregnant women around positive psychology, reframing their mental state. Pregnancy, that's a pivotal point before you really need it, before having a child. During the pandemic, I wrote a book for positive psychology for early elementary school students, 3 to 7. And it was still kind of separate. Came to Nashville, and that's a whole other life story and such, but came here to Nashville and had to reinvent myself. My husband got relocated here, and the nonprofit and my network and my family, and truly like what I thought was my self-worth and who I was like all gone, coming to a new city and not knowing anyone. And at that point in time, I got to reflect on my life and say, what brings me joy? What do I love doing? And it just kept bubbling up of like, how do I help others find their happiness? And how do I share this message? And that's when I really started touring and traveling the country, doing keynote speaking and tying them together. Is when I came to Nashville. So about 4 years ago.
Give me a 3-minute spiel on what you would talk about as a keynote.
Yeah, so I talk about the thoughts, actions, and behaviors for joy. So what are the thoughts that we control that connect us for joy? Well, it's gratitude, and it's positive thinking, and it's humor. And then what are those actions? So our actions are how we spend our time and spend our money. Obviously, like that correlates with the things we do every day. And then how do we translate that into behaviors? Well, the behaviors are how we show up with others. So spending time with others and relationships are the core sort of connection and actually changes our chemical biology for longer and healthier lifespans when we have these social connections. And so from thoughts, actions, and behaviors, we can find joy, and it's easy, and it's free, and we all can do this.
And it really kind of bridges my own field in play therapy, the science of play and joy and humor and happiness, that all kind of goes together. How fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I love my job. And I now finally have this piece where I was still sort of doing nonprofit capacity building. When I came here to Nashville, I started my own capacity building firm. And then happiness was still on the side, and they kind of would ebb and flow. But a year ago, I started mastermind groups inspired by what we did together at Brain Trust in our mastermind group of how do we support nonprofit leaders who are burnt out and who are challenged with the largest struggles in leadership. And so really ingrain in the positive psychology and the capacity building to run small groups for nonprofit leaders. So I'm like, they're paired together. It's this beautiful
What struggles diagram. Do you see in corporate leadership?
Oh, in corporate leadership. Or
even nonprofit, corporate. I mean, really both.
Very different. In corporate leadership, I see a lot more pigeonholing individuals. There's a lot of sexism, a lot of traditional thinking, small thinking, greed, which it doesn't resonate with me. And then they're so different because in the nonprofit sector, you've got these bleeding hearts who give to where they fall apart and they've got nothing left to give for themselves or family because we care so much about the mission. But we're also talking about political climate. We're talking the environmental context of donors and philanthropists and these power struggles of being a nonprofit leader, yet you can be fired because you have a board. I mean, it's just, there's layers and layers that they're different sort of leadership. They're my superheroes. Those who run nonprofits are my absolute heroes.
Let's talk about kids.
Ooh, let's talk about kids. Okay. Didn't want to have any, but I do have 2. Never thought I would be a mom. No, my husband and I said, we don't want kids. We don't want kids. Even right before our marriage, we're our wedding, we're not having kids, right? And then about 4 years into being married, he was like, oh, they're kind of cute. And I was like, no, they're not. They're sticky and they're expensive. And then my brother and my sister had kids, and I was like, oh, look at, they're really kind of cute. And they call me auntie and it's adorable. And so it wasn't until we were married for 6 or 7 years that we're like, okay, we'll have one. And then we're like, okay, we got it right. We have one. And then during the pandemic, you just forget how expensive things are. And then, we had another one. So we have 2. I have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Maybe talk about the little speaking engagement we did at, was it Sylvan Park Elementary School?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, let's chat about that.
So a book that has transformed so much of who I am and how I parent is The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so many people will share this sentiment. And so after I read that book, I was like, oh, other parents need to hear about this, and I want to hear how they're doing this and how they're interpreting this, and I love a good dialogue. And so I invited you and a school counselor to say, let's sit in front of and with our students at this school and say, how does this resonate? And it was also selfish because there's a lot of sort of things around, we can do things in our own home, but when our communities and friends aren't doing that, it's harder and it doesn't land. So I was like, okay, let's all do this together selfishly. And so we had that conversation, and so much has sparked and lit on fire since then.
So let's tell the story of what actually happened right after that event. And the advocacy work that we have stumbled upon. and are spending more time together lately.
And you meet people for certain reasons, and it's like, once I met you, I'm like, I don't know how we're going to connect, but like, we need to know each other.
Yeah.
And so that was helpful, and your stories and your insight were just meaningful and landed in a heartfelt way for everyone there, and myself included. And the irony is not lost on me that 3 days later is when I had this issue with school technology. My 9-year-old has had anxiety and struggled and been a really anxious child. That's been interesting for me as a parent to navigate, because I was like, I don't have anxiety about anything. I'm like, let's fly a plane. I can do it. So I'm learning a lot about myself and what anxiety looks like for young children. But I got a call from another parent saying that her child was having anxiety and sleep issues and such based on what my child was doing at school on her school computer. And I immediately was like, you've got the wrong parent. You're sure you got the story right? Like, it was an absolute no. I thought there was a 0% chance that this was happening. One, it's my child who's anxious. Why would she cause more anxiety? And it's a school computer.
Right.
And so at this point in time, public schools in Davidson County are requiring computers to go home. I think their intention was some kids don't have access and we don't want to call those out. So just they have to go home. Luckily, we never pulled it out. But I was like, oh, it's in my house. Let's pull it out. Opened it up, looked at the history, browser history, and had found, holy moly, yeah, this makes sense. Where over the course of a month, she had watched 42 different videos that were horrifying and graphic and violent. We're talking murders and psychologically damaging, like scary. And I think they're specifically YouTube and specifically YouTube Shorts. And so how that algorithm is designed is how can we be the most graphic, intense, blunt, aggressive in 2-minute spans. And so she'd watch these videos. And so you think of like watching an R-rated horror movie, not my genre, but some people are into it. There's like 30 seconds where it's really scary. But these were 2-minute videos that were the scariest seconds and videos of anything out there on the entire internet. And yeah, so I thought, well, we have a problem here. I watched all of them, and I don't watch scary things. I couldn't sleep. They were just awful. Oh, disgusting. And so I reached out to the school principal. She said, technology must be broken. Something's wrong with our filter. And he had completely supported and validated that this was not appropriate, that could be accessed on the computer. And then I got involved with the school district, and that's where it all fell apart. They didn't want to hear from me. They said the filter was working. That's all they could do. They fought me on YouTube being an educational tool. And it was the first time where I was advocating for my child and met with resistance. Typically, if there was an issue or anything at school, it's like, let's sit down, let's work, and we're a team, and let's both support the child. And it was not met with that tender, loving care and support for keeping children safe. And so it was a whole new ballgame.
And then a mama bear come out of your body, honey.
Yeah.
Mama bear came out, right? And then maybe talk about the series of events that's now landed us advocating and testifying for children here in Nashville with legislation.
I think Mama Bear's right, because as parents we're like, I can't imagine any mom who just said, well, that's fine then. But what I see is a lot of people then go homeschool, or they go private school, or
that's a great point.
They just leave.
They just bow out.
They bow out. They're like, okay, well, this isn't working, and so, or they have no other options, and they just do have to deal with it, or what does that look like? And so for me, if one door shuts, I'm gonna find another door, or I'm gonna climb through the ceiling tiles or something. We're taking a tunnel. Like, the no was not acceptable to me. You don't tell me no.
Don't tell mama no.
And
don't be telling mama no.
So I was like, well, where is my other door? And so I just started being annoying at school carnivals, at nonprofits that I was working with, heck, like book club, doesn't matter. I'm going to tell people what's happening until I have resources or allies or solutions. And so I spent several weeks of just saying, like, who am I grabbing at, and who's
campaigning, really?
Yeah,
100%.
But also it was this awareness of saying, hey, check your kids' browsers. Like, my child can't be the only one who's done this, and it's not safe.
Yeah,
yes.
It's going on everywhere.
And what I'd hear from other parents and say, oh yeah, over the weekend I let them take their laptops to their computer in their bedrooms because I'm sure it's safe. And I'm like, it's not, please. Like, my message is don't do that, because if that's what happened there, I'm like, I could tell you, I could really find some bad stuff really quickly. And so it was an awareness campaign, but also just like, hey, help me help the students. And then I met, I've served on the Infant Mental Health Association board, helped start that organization. It's 9 years old. I joined when, was on maternity leave with my daughter, which is why I know it's 9 years old at this point in time. And they really talk about the brain development of children in relational sort of settings and how we help early interventions for kids and families, and love this organization. And I was at a meeting with them. We had a weekend retreat, and I'm talking to them. I'm like, these are people who care desperately about kids and work at all levels. And I met Alice Rowley. And I had heard her speak when she ran for mayor a year previously, and just heard her at a debate. And I was like, this woman is smart.
Wicked smart.
And I watched her debate, and I was like, oh, I wish all female politicians were like her. That was my first engagement with her, but I didn't get to talk to her one-on-one. So then we're at this board retreat, and I got to sit down with her one-on-one and share what I was going through and how I was frustrated to have this wall up and have my child in a system that didn't care for her. And she said, well, let's change the laws. And I was like, oh, that's funny. That's cute. Like, okay, what other options are there? And she's like, no, really. And I was like, I'm bold, but that's real bold. She's like, let's do it. I will introduce you. I have a good friend of mine is Representative Scott Sapicki. He's out of Murray County. Go meet with him. And I was like, I'll meet with anyone. I'll sit down and tell a story. Like, that was an easy yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I can sit and meet with someone. She sets up the meeting. I meet with him. I walk into his office, and I've printed out photos of what she had watched. And I said, Representative, this is what my daughter accessed at school. And he said, no, she didn't. I said, respectfully, she did. And he said, don't say another word. And he gets on the phone and calls people from education committee and says, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're in a meeting right now. You get to my office right now, you run. And it was like that intensity was what I needed to hear. That someone was like, this is not okay. Because prior to that, people in authority who had the ability to affect my child were saying it was okay. And I was like, I like this. Mm. Someone who's going to stand up for children. It was the first that's like, we're going to do something about it. And so he said, okay, I want everyone to hear this story. As many people who could be in there, and shared the story. And he said, we're going to change this. And I was like, you mean you? And he's like, no, we need your story. You have to be part of this. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Politics is usually where I'm a conflict avoider. I don't like conflict. Mm. I don't like politics. And he said, we're going to write legislation. And so that was in June. We'd had a couple meetings prior, and things were moving slowly. And that's where I really felt the obligation of, okay, if I have a voice in this, which I didn't know I would have as much of a voice in, what are other states doing? What's out there? What can we be doing? And that's when I took a crash course in what does it look like, educational tools and online technology and school access, and education, politics, and internet were not things I was an expert on. And I still don't sit here and say I'm an expert on, but I've tried my best to learn everything that I can.
So you started researching, reading.
Yes. What harm's being done? What software exists? How can we do this? I talk to friends in technology. I talk to teachers. I talk to parents. Anyone, articles, data, research. And so I came to his office and said, there's 7 things I want in this bill. And he said, let's do it. And so we had a really large meeting with Department of Education and lots of other stakeholders, Alice and tech people and Debbie Tate, and said, how do we write this? How do we craft this? And the first legislation I saw, I said, this is weak. I was like, no, this isn't what I want. And so I got to go in and say, like, I really fought for the safe list of websites, and I really fought for audit of school districts. And there were some things I kind of put my foot down and said, like, what's the point of this if we're not going to go big? Mm-hmm. And so some bills are one little thing. I was like, there's 7 things in this bill, and I think it's really meaningful if we're going to hold schools accountable to tech. All of it is simple, and people read it and go, why aren't we doing this?
Elle, maybe you can explain what is in this bill that we are advocating for.
Yeah. So within our bill of House Bill 1886 and Senate Bill 1912, we are specifically talking about internet access on school devices. So it is narrow in lens, but it's really robust in what are we putting in these requirements. First, we're removing email for children under 5th grade. All children are assigned an email starting in kindergarten. It's inappropriate. I found in our school, the children were they call their text messaging, and they're using it because it's a communication tool. They're bullying. We also found students at my daughter's school who've received nude photos. And as I look across the state, there's been issues with outside adults emailing students, and even inappropriate with teacher and students communication. And they're not developmentally there to need communication. And as parents, we didn't even know they had email and couldn't access it. Easy. I don't think that's controversial. I think that'll be a non-issue. That's happening no matter what. We redefine the definition of age appropriate and make sure that middle school, high school, and elementary school, those are different age limits and what should be seen. We ask that there's a grievance policy for each school so that parents and caregivers can speak out if they think something's wrong. As technology continues to change, we can't just say we've done it. It needs to be have fluid movement, as parents want to have a voice in what our children are accessing at school. They have to look at their policies twice a year. We increase the education for students. Right now it's 30 minutes a year. As you know, here, children, we want you to be responsible online. 30 minutes a year, we're going to talk about being safe online, and now the full requirement is on you. Not okay. So we enhance that for both teachers, parents, and students. And then we have a safe list. Now, this I definitely attribute to my technology friends, because I thought, how can we keep up? What technology, what software will keep students online? I have this incredible tech connection, and I call him and I said, tell me how you keep your students online. He said, oh, I sell this software and I don't trust it. Mm-hmm. There's no software that can be fast enough to the predators and harm that's on the internet. The only way you can do it is have a safe list of websites. These are safe. And Period. Then you put the software on top in case they've been compromised or other sort of things. But if you have a blacklist, which is what my school district does, oh, that website's harmful, we'll now block it. Well, you've already had harm to that child.
Right.
And those bad websites are made every second, every minute. You can't keep up. And so the load on the technology department is way too hard. Define safe list. And in the safe list should be educational and should be age appropriate for these children. And we need to limit it. The internet was not designed for children.
Nope.
And predators and such have tapped into that. And so we're robust in this. I'm interested in what other states are doing, but it looks like Tennessee has the ability to lead the country in setting some high standards.
As a child and family therapist, I have been amazed at how behind the eight ball parents are, and the lack of awareness that they have of what's happening in their own homes regarding an electronic babysitter. This is very unintentional. Can you speak to parents that maybe their children right now, they think they're in their bedrooms just having a grand old time, and they're busy parents, cooking and running businesses and working their jobs and cleaning up the yard and whatever they're doing, and they think that their child is in their bedroom entertained and safe, and yet they may not be. And so I talk a lot about how white vans are coming and, quote, kidnapping our children, except it's happening under our own roofs. Could you speak to those parents and maybe help me wake them up a little bit to be a little more hyper vigilant of what's happening under their own roofs in their own homes?
Yeah, and I will share. I'm like, when I've failed, because we want the best for our children. And I'm so naive. I just assume that everyone out there is
happy, like wonderful. You are.
Right? We're all happy, right? If you find $10 in the parking lot, you try and find who it belongs to. Like that. But no,
do the right
most people
thing.
aren't like that.
Yeah.
And so, at one point in time, I had he was about 18 months. He had a ear infection. So I'm home with a sick kid, and he's a crier. I love him to death, but he cries. And so this is Saturday, and I'm dealing with a fever and trying to get in the doctors. And so she's probably 7 at this point in time. Yeah, I'm trying to do the math. So my 7-year-old has her school computer, and she said, can I play the math games on my school computer. I said, absolutely. Please just occupy yourself. Play the math games. I can't have two kids right now. Like, I have a screaming child on my arm. Just play the math games. And she keeps wanting me to be involved. And I'm annoyed because I'm like, I'm dealing with a sick kid right now. Just please, just be by yourself.
I get it.
Like, and so she wants me to do something. She's like, hey, can I play this other game? And I'm not even listening to her. I said, yeah, absolutely. I don't even care. Just stop talking to me. Like, I'm just like, I can't right now. I know. I need a break. I can't do this. And so then I hear from the other room, and she's going, yeah, oh, yeah, oh. And I'm like, what is she doing? And so I go in there, and she is online gambling, which I laugh because I do think it's kind of funny. And so in that moment, she's playing some game, which I was like, okay, this isn't a school game anymore. Like, we've gone off of this. And she's like, yeah, I clicked something. And I'm like, oh, you got a pop-up. It was a school website. It was a safe website.
You clicked something, all right.
You clicked it.
You clicked something,
and
all
it's
right.
a big green button. And that's how I learned
the
this
big
website.
green button.
Big green button. So like the leaper and all this development, it's psychology, and that means it's safe for kids. Big green button, and that technology. You go in the toy aisle, and the big green button is the kids' go button. And so she clicked it, and in that moment, I didn't even think anything was really wrong, because I was like, oh, well, it's a slot machine, and the numbers and patterns, and there's money, so like maybe she's learning. I don't know. Like, this is my parenting love. Like, I share this because we've all been there, hopefully, if not just me. And I was like, I don't even care. Like, whatever. This is not my priority right now. So I walk out, and then about 5 minutes later, so all of this happened in like, I don't know, 20 minutes, I get a call from my credit card company. And they have taken my credit card information and charged $100 on that website. And I was like, oh, now we got a problem. She doesn't know my credit card information, so she didn't type that in. It was a scam website where my credit card is saved on my computer, but it didn't ask for my zip code. It didn't ask for the 3-digit code, because she doesn't know that. It was a bad website. But in that 20-minute span, she was having fun. She's like, I won money. And I was like, well, hold on. How much money did you win? Or how much did you spend? But she had created a profile. She had named herself as being 7 years old. And she'd put up her little ballet photo up there. And someone had messaged her, hey, how are you? Luckily, she didn't see it. She didn't respond to it. But had I left her there for another hour or 10 minutes, a 7-year-old's going to be like, ooh, look, I made a friend. Like, ooh, who can I talk to? And I'm like, we know this person was bad because it was a bad website. And she listed she's 7 years old and in her ballet outfit. And I was like, oh. So caught it early enough.
Speaks to the innocence of children and how they are so naturally curious at this age. And when I'm seeing parents where their children have been doing this for months, sometimes years, and all of a sudden, there's this big life event. And thankfully you caught it early, but many parents are not catching it early. And so
I'm not new to the dangers of the internet. Now, I just recently told my mom this, and she about died, and I shouldn't have told her. But it's interesting. I think back, and I had blocked this out because when I was in high school, I loved Instant Messenger and AOL Instant Messenger, and I'd have the dial-up, and I'd get home from high school, actually middle school. Middle school it started is when I got the dial-up internet, and did you do this?
I'm older than you, Elle.
Okay, well, I had the dial-up, and it was the phone
remember
line
the dial-up.
Anyway. Yeah, so anyway, in middle school, I liked computers, and then I liked learning coding, and I started website building and such when I was in middle school and thought it was really fun. But I went into chat rooms, and I met boys. And my mom was like, you did what? So my mom worked retail. She was a single mom. Retail is all hours of the night. So I learned to cook dinner, and lots of kids. Anyway, okay. So she wasn't even home. She didn't even know what I was doing, let alone she didn't know anything about tech, whatsoever. But I remember meeting several boys on the internet. We'd exchange photos back and forth. And in middle school, probably 7th or 8th grade, I would have high school boys come pick me up from middle school, and I lied to them. I was like, oh, I was just visiting my little sister here. And I would have them pick me up from school, take me out of school, drive in cars with strangers I didn't know. And so I'm like, okay, that was, when did I graduate high school? We're talking 1999, 2000, long time ago, this was happening. It's now easier and more accessible now than when I was waiting 10 minutes for a response on my dial-up internet.
Wow.
So I was like, it's really, I know the dangers of it. I'm lucky that nothing happened to me, but Yeah, my mom didn't like hearing that recently. She didn't know. I didn't tell her.
Can you talk about the legislation talk a little bit more about the process? You know, when I walked into the building, I was like, okay, this is a public building. I've never been here before, and I'm going to be testifying for children's online safety. You know, a lot of people never even enter a room like that. Can you walk us into the building, what this is like, what we're doing right now?
It is so foreign, and I'm a conflict avoider. I don't like division. I think in college I was kind of into politics and other things, and I've just been so turned off by the narrative of politics and politicians. And so when I hear it, when I see it, I've changed my algorithm not to be involved in it. And so I've had this perception that it's ugly. And so coming into this, I'm like, I don't know. I was literally watching, and there's a lot of great things. Sycamore Institute and Think Tennessee have great resources on like how a bill becomes a law, specifically in Tennessee, how many senators we have, how many committees and House of Representatives. And like, I felt like I was back in high school learning
government class.
How do we do this? But also it changes so often. And I grew up in Colorado, but I got to learn like, okay, we need a sponsor. So my sponsor is Scott Sapicki.
Right.
On the House side, and on the Senate side, we need a sponsor. He co-sponsors things with Joey Hensley, and so those are our two sponsors. The sponsors have to run them in each committee. So you need the bill to be the same and mirrored between the House committee and the Senate committee before it can go to Governor Bill Lee. And so we started in the House, and we got assigned to the Administration Education Subcommittee. So you've got to go to the subcommittee of 8 individuals, and we need we need a majority wins there. We got it. We got a unanimous.
Sure
we got a unanimous. We walked in. High five. We walked in, and I had my binder of research, and we were ready for questions. And so our sort of strategy was like, I'll share the like mom thing. Dr. Jaggers is going to share like, here's what she's seen in her practice. Dr. Gupta was like, I do children's research on technology and as a pediatrician. And then we're like, okay, come at us with questions. And that was a real win for us because I was ready. Like, let's talk about this. Their jaws were on the floor. The energy was, we're not asking these women anything. Let's take a vote. I wanted to dialogue, but it was let's take a vote and thank them and move on. So unanimous in the Education Administration Committee on the House. Then we went to full education. And so part of what I try and do before each of these committees is try and meet with each of these individuals, sit down in their office, 10 or 15 minutes, share the story. I want to know how they're going to vote beforehand. I want to ask questions because as you read the legalese, you're like, what does this mean? What really is in here? People ask a lot of times the Children's Internet Protection Act, that's a federal law that requires schools to protect kids. Well, that's 12 years old. And people go, what? And I'm like, yeah, we haven't updated it in 12 years old, and it's real watered down. And so I have these conversations and try and get their votes. So then we go to Education Committee, and I could get as many meetings as I could. I was like, okay, I think we have the votes to win. Again, we went in, we did the same testimony. We had Debbie Tate who came in, and her narrative is that she helped roll out the internet across the state 30 years ago. We're at the 30-year anniversary, and now we need to keep it safe. So she's got a lot of political clout with those in the room.
Can you talk about her for
brilliant?
She's fantastic.
Oh, and
wow.
She also shares the narrative of being a mom and a grandma now and wanting to keep children safe online. And I respect her in so many ways because she comes at these conversations with humility and an openness for conversations, yet you also don't mess with her. No. I was like, I also like that. I'm like, we can talk real soft, but like there's a hard edge. Yeah. And I love and respect that so much. And yeah, so again, we were ready. The conversation, there was more dialogue there. They asked conversations. I think a lot of the conversations was some underlying political background that had nothing to do with us. I think we've got some parties that are just going to vote on their party, or they want to question someone because they don't like each other. I mean, it gets a little ugly in there, and the bill that was put on the committee before us got them all hot and heavy, and there was conflict, and I don't know if that helped us or hurt us, but we're learning how the sausage is made. And so we had 19-1 in the committee. We had one vote against it, and I know it's because parties. It was not because of our issue, but that also breaks my heart saying, okay, you're going to let a party politic get in between protecting children. So I wanted it to be unanimous in every committee. We're not there, but we're one person out.
Yeah.
So now we're going into the Senate Education, and I think we've got about 10 people in there. I tried to meet with as many as I could today. They were really busy. They've been back in session, and Thursdays are really difficult over there. But I'll continue to meet with them and see what we can do. Continue to educate. This is not a controversial topic. I think some of the conversations are, how do we roll it out, and what does this look like, but we don't say no because of the unknowns. And also, this is not rocket science. Like, this is just protecting children and using filters that should exist. It's even sad we have to be here and have these conversations.
Because it seems like it's common sense, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about what we're hoping for?
Yeah. Oh, so we're hoping for a unanimous vote in the Senate Education Committee. So Tennesseans, call your senators, tell them you want to support Senate Bill 1912, and then we'll go to full Senate. So we can't testify and share our testimony in full House and full Senate. We will be watching online and cheering them on and hoping that gets wild. If you've ever watched, like, as a Tennessean, I find it really interesting now that I'm in it and I know who these people are and all these politics at play. Watching these sessions, it's wild, fascinating, and scary and sad, and all the things at once. So many emotions. People are like, how are you doing? This must be so much fun. Someone today at the Capitol said, it looks like you're having so much fun. I said, I have anti-nausea pills in my backpack right now because I'm so nauseous from all of these conversations, and I'm talking to people that I find to be gross and people I idolized and voted for, I've lost respect for, but yet I'm making friends with people that I never thought I would. And so there's a lot of emotions here. It makes me really sad when people aren't as passionate about protecting kids as we are. Right. And so I was like, yeah, my stomach's just really off and I'm really tired at the end of the day. So fun isn't how I describe it, but like, we're in it. We're wanting this to happen. We'll have to go through fiscal in the House, I found out today. We don't want to be what's called behind the budget. If we are, we'll have to navigate what that looks like with Governor Lee being put in the budget. We don't have the right fiscal note and to know what the cost is on this. I'm learning so much about the fiscal note and being behind the budget. Sometimes if you're behind the budget means the Senate and the House have fully supported it, but there's not budget for it, so it dies. But if any of these committees don't vote it forward, it dies. If I stop pushing it forward and having it on the agenda, it dies. If there's not money for it, like, most bills die. I'm like, oh, okay. It's interesting. So yeah, we're going the long route. We're going to make this happen.
I find it interesting that Tennessee is in leadership around this subject. And can you talk about the hope that this happens all over the country? Absolutely.
The reason it's not happening at the federal level, the tech lobbyists own politics. I mean, they're so heavy in investing and putting people in power. And so we're finally holding Meta accountable, and Zuckerberg testifying last week was a really big deal. But these tech companies own school districts because they're providing all the ed tech that they're put in front of schools. So I wish this was at a federal level, like Australia banning social media for children and such at a federal level, because they're not owned in their politics in the same lobbyist sort of way that we have. And so I think we may have to do it state by state because the lobbyist tech companies aren't here in Tennessee. Tennessee's not a tech state now, like California and such. Like, oh, okay, tech company. And so it's interesting in that I've made friends with some wonderful moms in Utah who are passing legislation, and so we're sharing each other's wins and how we're going through it. They've got two interesting bills that my representative Sapicki said I can't run another one, but I'm going to run another bill. We just got to wait till next year. They've got two bills that I love. They have a hardware bill and a software bill. The software bill says any software, app, computer game, anything that's coming in front of a kid has to be third-party approved to be better for educating the student than not using it. And we haven't seen that because in reading and math, since we've given them computers and apps to learn better, it's decreasing every single year. So there goes all our software because it's not valid. And then their hardware bill, which I really love the hardware bill. The hardware bill is setting limits on how many hours and minutes kids can be in front of screens. So like, I don't know their exact number. They may have an amendment and it ebbs and flows through politics, but say it's 60 minutes. elementary school students should not have eyes in front of screens more than 60 minutes. Middle school, maybe 90. High school, maybe 2 hours.
Amen.
But setting limits.
Right.
And that'll allow us to start saying, well, how often are they? I'm the room mom. I'm in the classroom a lot. Those computers are on the desk most of the day. I don't like it. And they're not safe tech anyway. All the things. So it's interesting what other people are doing. Last year, the big momentum was removing cell phones. So most states, I think 32 states have cell phone bans. Tennessee is one of them. Bell to bell, can't have cell phones out. Great, we're moving somewhere. We all collectively started to see those dominoes trickle. And so if we're one of the first, then hopefully next year people will start talking about school-wide devices and making the required devices safe. And it's also just, I laugh at this, being like, why aren't we doing this? Do we need laws to actually have school districts require?
Well, it reminds me of cigarette smoking in the 70s and the 80s, right? Like everybody smoked. My clients laugh when I tell them that I quit smoking when I was 9.
I started and quit in the same day. It was 30 minutes. It didn't last for me.
I would sneak my father's Cool Light 100 menthol cigarettes.
Yeah.
But then I quit when I was 9. I decided I was done. But, you know, going down the highway, you would see big marquees with advertisements of all kinds of cigarettes and, you know, smoking and non and all of that. And then 15 years later, it's black lung disease and all the things that we needed to quit smoking, and the research that came out around the health, you know, the detriment that cigarette smoking did to us back in the day. And in many ways, this is history repeating itself, and yet it's our children. And so, first of all, I just want to say thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for joining this.
Truly,
I need your narrative and your expertise on this.
Thank you for the energy and the time that you have spent spearheading this movement here in this little area of ours in Nashville. These are volunteer hours.
Oh, I'm not
these are
this,
all volunteer hours that we're spending, you know, away from our kids and our husbands and our businesses, because we feel that strongly about it. So I want you to know how much I appreciate what you're doing.